All right, so to kick off our AI panel, we'll start with our two Microsoft panelists. If you want to introduce yourselves.
Sure. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. My name is Lalo Teyman. I am Microsoft for almost 24 years, so that's why I use my and I was doing many different things. As you can imagine, after 24 years, I do different things. Now I am in a very exciting part of my career, I would say, even though after all many years, I am covering high-tech companies in the US. So all our customers are either startups in data investments or high-tech companies with big names, as you can imagine. And that's an interesting part of my job because I am also dealing with them about AI, how they are challenging AI and how they are going to develop products with AI. So that's what I am doing in my everyday job, which is a very, very interesting topic. And I love to be here. I want to say thank you to us who allow us to have the opportunity to be here and to be having this conversation. So looking forward.
And hello everyone, my name is Juan Bernal. I'm a cloud solutions architect in the M365 Copilot space. Been with Microsoft about 4 years now. I did make a transition from unified communications, teams and collaboration tools and telephony to AI, of course. And my big focus is in the healthcare and life sciences space, specifically pharma and medtech companies. It's a lot of my larger customers that I manage day to day. And also specializing to adoption, administration, and agentic AI motions for many of these organizations too. So hopefully we can express some of the new trends that I would say, and I will see on the industries and address any questions at the end.
All right, so thank you. So again, we have a couple of prepared questions, but then we'll open up for the audience. All right, so first question, Lalo. May I call you Lalo?
Everybody knows me.
Okay. So from your vantage point, helping customers modernize applications and infrastructure, where are you seeing AI investments translate into real measurable return on investment, especially in legacy modernization and cloud-ready architectures?
I think there are like three pieces on the answer of this question. The first one is what's going on with modernization. I think that we as an industry, we are still behind in modernizing all our applications. So I would keep the move from migrating things that you may have in other applications to more modern architectures as a priority and keep doing that as normal business. That's very important, right? It's very important because there are many other reasons that we got to do that. Maybe this is not as shiny as working AI seems like, but it's very important for the business, and there is a lot of things to make impact in the business when we are modernizing apps. The second angle of that is, should we wait for AI or should we wait for having a clear ROI for AI if we haven't modernized? And my answer is absolutely no. I think that that's why I believe that they're independent. The time for AI is right now, and it is a good thing that all companies are trying to experiment how they're going to be landed, how they're going to be using Copilot, using how things can be landed in your organization, even with small wins, because if you are not going to be doing that, more likely your competitors or your colleagues or somebody else is going to be doing that, and you're going to be behind, right? That's what's happening in the market is that AI is augmenting the capabilities of everybody. If you are not taking advantage of that, somebody's going to make a distance with you even bigger. So it's a time for doing that, even though it's not. I wouldn't tie those two things. That's why I try to make it a separate answer. And the third angle is, can we use AI to modernize? And this is an absolutely yes. I mean, modernizing applications can be also used with AI, right? There is a lot of gains when you are using AI. If you have already plans to modernize your thing, maybe you can use AI to create the plan for moving your infrastructure to assess what you have today and have a better plan. So AI can be a tool to modernize itself. But I think that the three answers are independent. And I truly believe, I am seeing so many people that are wondering if should we use AI, should we have the perfect environment to start trying it, and I would say, no, don't wait for that. The time for AI is now, and if not, somebody else is gonna eat your lunch. Exactly. And there's an ROI for that? More likely no, because when you are doing at the speed of light, you are drawing things, right? You are not perfect as you should, but it's the time for doing that. Those are my reflections.
And so let me follow up on that. So what we're observing too is that the ability to take on technical debt in the organization is completely changed because of AI, using GitHub Copilot. So earlier in our use case, we talked about a mainframe, which that is a massive project, but there are many like outdated .NET solutions or Java solutions someone wanted to turn into C#, or they were using an older messaging like RabbitMQ and they wanted to go to Microsoft Service Bus. I mean, there is GitHub Copilot is having a dramatic effect on how quickly you can tackle that technical debt in ways that before, what people just didn't want to touch it. It was just like, oh, that's going to be a big project. No one wants to work on it. It's going to take all this extra time and has a higher cost. What are you seeing as far as people taking on the technical debt? What type of solutions?
That's what I said, that absolutely modernizing, combining it with AI is a way to accelerate it. And I am seeing this more and more. But there is not a clear answer to that. Well, I mentioned before that like the segment that I manage is like large tech companies. So essentially what they have is just developers, right? That's essentially my I would say my customer audience, right? And there's many discussion nowadays about how is going to be the future of programming, right? If future of programming is going to be something sustainable, are we going to be programming? Are there going to exist programmers? That's a question that exists all over the place. And today I don't have an answer. There are of course people that are more optimistic like myself that we are going to evolve in a way. There are people that are more pessimistic, but I believe that right now this is in the middle of the millstone of the discussion. But there are many games to get in that. So you start experimenting it and don't stop any modernization because of lack of it. And again, don't try to be in the middle of the other, but also try to combine and get synergy for doing both.
All right, thank you, Lala. So Juan, you work closely with customers across different industries. What are the most practical, high-impact AI use cases you've helped architect that move beyond experimentation and produce quantifiable business value?
So certainly just leveraging the services and features, right, that we have as a service provider of AI solutions for enterprises. Because with it, of course, at scale, users and business users are going to be able to enjoy a little bit more of freedom in the time perspective to put towards valuable objectives of the organization. So one of those is the time value saving, right? But also being able to be fast, being able to be accurate, being able to get to accomplish the project sooner and with good quality because of leveraging the tools of AI. So the return on investment needs to be addressed at that level of the end user, but also at the business operational level to be able to obtain the data, to be able to extract information, to build the artifacts that make the projects move forward. So in the return on investment area, when we're talking about M365 Copilot as an example, right? Many organizations kind of focus a lot into the admin, the governance, the legality, how it works, how secure it is, right? But at the same time, the other groups have a little bit of a difficulty into building the reporting that will allow them to see the value that has been achieved by using these services and these tools. So the call out normally is in many of my customers is that it's good to focus on enablement, but you also need to focus on the reporting and the monitoring of how these tools and services are helping your users, right? Because otherwise, then you couldn't articulate to your leadership how valuable it is, right? So again, out of the package solutions Microsoft has with AI and Copilot are available to build that, but it usually requires an organization to be structured and organized and have the resources to actually do it, because that's the other challenge, right? Every organization is resource constrained from the human perspective to address not just enablement, monitoring, management, reporting, adoption. But those organizations that are successful usually had a clear structure and directive from leadership into making sure that someone or a group of people is in charge of each one of these areas, so that way the whole implementation or the whole use of AI is valuable for the whole organization, right? Some of the people that, or organizations that struggle, normally only have, let's say, a small group of 2 to 5 people trying to manage AI for the whole organization, when the organization is about 50,000 users, and it's tough because it's used a lot, right? And it's a constant change, right, in regards to features and enablement and opportunities that you need to take into consideration to implement the solutions.
I turned mine off because I heard thumping. I'm wondering if one of these is on.
Doesn't have the protector.
Right. All right. So earlier today, Work IQ was presented along with Fabric IQ, which is the data, and Foundry IQ. Tell us your thoughts on Work IQ, because that directly ties into the M365 Copilot world.
Certainly. So, of course, you probably already got the overview, right? But Work IQ being a new data layer, inference layer, not just understanding what your files are or the data in those files are, but the relationships between all of the entities of the data in the M365 cloud. From people, to files, to artifacts, to flags and metadata, right? So it's gonna be helping a lot of users to be able to achieve an output out of working with M365 Copilot faster, because it contextualizes what the user is doing, so it's kind of an additional context layer. So that way, when someone has a question or trying to execute a workflow, it already knows the relationships between the data points or the artifacts or the entities even, right? People and users, that the output of it is gonna be valuable in the go, at the first go, instead of having to iterate with it, have a conversation with it to try to make it work how you want it to work, right? So it's just an additional helper into the process of getting some additional value of it.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Juan. So, Lalo, as companies modernize their app ecosystems, how should they think about integrating co-pilots and autonomous agents directly into workflows and line of business applications? What are you seeing?
Yeah, that's a very relevant question, and I think that is a bigger question nowadays. Right? What are you going to be using? But at the end of the day, I think that you have to think in a framework that is going to have like 3 different steps, right? The first one is how you're going to get better information, how you can collect the knowledge that exists inside your organization in a right and protected way, which is exactly what Work IQ and these type of things are going to be helping. But the thing with the collecting, with when you're working with knowledge and taking knowledge from the AI is that you are not affecting anything, right? You are not generating any second effects on that. The second phase that is when you are providing the right information to all your colleagues or the people that are working for your organization or all your collaborators is start working in the action, right? When you have your business is like we are having it with Copilot in CRM, right? That you can direct and you can ask our applications to do things using a higher language rather than going and doing step by step in the different tools, right? So you can start completing tasks from that. And the last stage is when you mature in the automation of tasks, how you're gonna have able to be having autonomous agents that they're gonna be start collaborating among them. That's what we did. That's gonna be the three phases. And if you heard today about frontier company and everything is about these three steps. Right? That's what I believe. And we have to start experimenting with phases of that. Maybe this can be like the three horizons that there are a lot of business frameworks that exist out there. That you can have these horizons and have a horizon for having more information, for automating tasks, and for having autonomous agents. So that's the way that I believe that should be approached. And in terms of concrete tools, right now, that's the $1 million question that I mentioned at the beginning is, there is, that's a conversation that I have so many times. I am kind of tired. I mean, should I use Copilot or should we use Azure Foundry? It's a very technical question. Maybe, I don't know if you want to go into that, but these are, in Microsoft, in general, you have tools that they have overlapping functionality. And this is not a mistake, this is a feature, as they say in technology, right? This is on purpose, that we are trying, and we also as a company are trying different things because we are moving really fast. So there are certain functionality that for certain audiences, when you are dealing with certain types of user, they're gonna be feeling more comfortable with Copilot Studio and using Copilot, automating through Copilot. And there are other organizations that they are more oriented to those first type of experience and they're gonna be using Azure Foundry. But I have many discussions and sometimes I know that I get people frustrated. I say, oh, give me like a white and black guideline that should we use this for, and you are not excited in our literature. And also, if you talk with different people inside Microsoft, they're gonna give you a slightly different question because at the end of the day, there is a gray zone, and it's not a bug, it's a feature, as the old sayings like to say, right? So that's what I believe.
If I can add to that, of course, because certainly organizations had the opportunity of leveraging the out-of-the-box solutions or building in pro code Azure Foundry elements, right? And it's always going to depend on the use case and how the organization wants to take into the responsibility of building from scratch, sustaining, maintaining, right, these tools versus consuming something that is already available that can probably fulfill that need for the business, for the workflow, right, in the AI agentic space. So I always advise my customers when I have that question, hey, Azure AI, Azure AI or Copilot, I say, well, what is your use case? What are you intending to do? What are you willing to sustain as an organization with your structure to continue developing this agent? Because it's not just building an agent and letting it run. You have to continuously sustain it. It's an application, basically lifecycle management at the end of the day that you have to consider when you do Azure AI Foundry for agents. Or is the out-of-the-box available tools enough for the business to move forward without having to worry about that, because now Microsoft is providing that to you, right? So start with the use case, the why, and if you have the resources and the intention, right? And normally whenever it's a very custom, very complex approach of addressing a workflow, that's when we also think about Azure AI Foundry, right? Versus the low-code opportunities of Copilot Studio, for example.
But always, as it happened with the LLMs, right? In the LLMs, everything is about the context, right? You're going to hear that many times if you are dealing with LLMs. The same thing happened here with the problem at hand, right? Everything is related to the context. So if you have people that they are already doing Azure Foundry, why are you going to ask them to learn a new tool? And vice versa, right? You have a lot of people that are very fond of Copilot Studio, they are using Power Automate for other stuff. Why are going to be asking them to learn something new, right? Depends on the context and depends on what you're trying to accomplish as well, as Juan said. So for me, it's like an LLM answer, right? Depends on the context. If I say something in vacuum, more likely I'm going to hallucinate, as the LLMs hallucinate too. So definitely, that's for me the answer.
Yeah, I mean, those are questions that we get too. The client says, well, tell me which one I should use. Copilot Studio or Microsoft Foundry. So Copilot Studio is the low-code solution, great solution, and Microsoft Foundry is more the pro-code side. And people hate it when IT, we give them this answer, well, it depends, right? And I like how you're saying, it really depends on the use case, that you've got to drill down and
It's
understand
not the use case, it's the context. But because,
context.
because the use case can be X, right? And can be the same in another company. But in another company, you have another set of skills or another
Skill sets, right?
another architecture. So in that other context, the answer can be different. I witness this conversation because I always be close to development type of things. Should we use Visual Basic or C#? I was tired of that conversation. I love both of them, right? To be honest with you, I like C# and I like Visual Basic. What was the best? I don't know. Give me the programming context. Give me what your team is used to. Give me more about the context again, and I can give you the right answer. It's not like it doesn't exist like a pre-cooked answer or cookie cutter type of answer, in my view.
Right, because you have performance, scaling, security, cost. In fact, one client, we actually scoped out. One thing that I always say to clients is, there's usually 5 different ways to solve the same problem. But those 5 different decisions have impacts. And so pro code, sometimes there's more licensing considerations if they don't already have. Right. So you can shorten development time, but you're going to have a higher monthly recurring license in certain cases, whereas pro code, it's going to take longer to develop, but your monthly recurring could be a lot lower. And then again, it also depends. And then you can do a hybrid somewhere in the middle. So. Yeah.
And that's a pretty good answer because MCP server, I don't know, I don't want to get too technical, but MCP server that are all over the place, now they can be used for Copilot Studio as well. So now there are more feature parity among them, which is in the other way, I believe that is a good thing, right? But for some people that want to have this straight answer, it's a bad thing, not a good thing.
All right, this next question we actually already kind of touched on indirectly. Let me open it up to, so right before this we had the conversation with the partner at the law firm on compliance, right, governance, impact. What are the conversations you're having with clients? What are they bringing up? And what are some questions that they're not asking that they should be?
Well, one very recurrent conversation that I have, and that's why I kind of engage with the core team that is doing this, but this is had to do a lot with my context, right? I work a lot with high-tech companies, and high-tech companies are saying, okay, we're going to integrate AI in a way or another in our products. How I can be sure that I am following the right guidance for governance and everything, right? And of course, there are pieces of technology. I believe that the more things that you can integrate in the platform, I would say that if you look at the technical artifacts, everything that can be resolved at the platform level, and you can assume reach everywhere, right? So that's the answer that somebody, or the answer to the question that somebody raised before about what happened with the prompt injection, right? Prompt injection at the end of the day is a bad actor injecting something in the middle, so you have to assume breach, which is a way to protect that. And if you have everything protected with data protection, as Jason said before, that will happen. Right? But that's from the technical standpoint. But the other question is how I can ensure from the process standpoint that we are going to have a process that is going to ensure that we're going to be fair, we're going to have accountable and so forth. And that's why we open source, so to speak, our internal development process, which is responsible AI. And one of the things that I was saying before that I am having a lot is talking with our customer base that they are developing products for their customer base, how they can establish a product that considers all these things from the get-go, right? That's one of the more common conversations that I have, and I will strongly recommend everybody because the process is very good polish, I would say. The responsible AI, to look for responsible AI documentation, and we open up what we are doing internally. That's the beauty of it. As a matter of fact, the person in my team that knows this at a detail level and work with our customers is also working with Microsoft engineering to release things that we are releasing in Copilot or releasing. It is one of these few occasions where Phil is also competing with engineering in Microsoft Word, right? To release products because we are providing this audio thing that has to be done by a third party for the product that they're going to be released. So this is our process. I think that I think it's very well covered. It's one of the best that I have seen. So definitely, this work to be analyzed.
One perspective I want to offer from the governance and compliance at the enterprise level really is that all of our very large businesses normally work with different business groups: legal, security, IT, HR, change management, right? And the trend that I see normally happening in these organizations is that those that are successful implementing AI and taking advantage of it and finding value and advancing really have a really good relationship among all of these business units, because legal can be a blocker, HR can be a blocker, right? The compliance, security perspective, on the technical side of it, the IT admins can be a blocker, right? And whenever they don't speak to each other, right, then they don't move forward, right? And AI is advancing so fast that I see a lot of organizations falling behind, stuck in the loop of trying to coordinate their internal resources. So I make this comment, for everyone here to think through how your organizations are managing through the workflows of ensuring that everyone communicates properly with each other to understand and move a project like this forward of implementing AI, but also giving them the tools, giving them the knowledge, right, so they can feel confident about how it works, right? So from that perspective, of course, just building responsible AI solutions implemented on the custom solutions on a Foundry, for example, from the M365 perspective, knowing that this is already implemented by Microsoft, right? It has this framework and just understanding and the architecture of how it works. Microsoft is pretty open about showcasing that to anyone that is interested, through documents, through sessions. But at the end of the day, there is always room for improvement, and Microsoft is moving super fast into capturing feedback from organizations into saying, hey, my purview solution is not allowing me to do prompt rejection, based on terms, right? And then working towards implementing that pretty fast, right? So again, the feedback of organization is also useful. So I also invite everyone that is leveraging these tools with Microsoft to don't be shy, right? Because PG is hearing this feedback. People like me in the field are capturing this feedback, talking to PG to promote this feedback so they can be implemented, develop, improve. And I think I would say at this point in time, compared to about a year ago, the governance, security perspective of the solutions, at least in M365 Copilot, is a lot more comprehensive. A lot of things like DSPM, in Purview and Copilot security and all of these tools that are coming out, basically since last Ignite, they are helping move that. But it remains in the business to collaborate among each other, just to make sure that everyone understands, everyone feels confident that solutions are secure or designed securely, right? If you're a custom building, and then implementing for the business users.
So among the 867 acronyms that Microsoft has, and I just
We keep it better. We are going to slow down the pace.
So PG stands for product group. So the product groups also sometimes they have these PGIs, product group interactions, and certain partners and people within BP get to attend those, and that's very interesting because you can hear what's being worked on. What's coming out in private preview gives people the ability to, apply on behalf of a client to participate in the private preview or public.
But you're raising a very interesting point that is, I want to take it and relate to something I said before, which is the way that they are capturing feedback from MVPs is totally dependent from the way that they are capturing feedback from us.
Okay.
And they are going to, and they are kind of competing in a way. And this is part of the same style that I mentioned to you before, that there are certain pieces that is not a bug, it's a feature, right? That they are this divided, right? And there, I so many people today. I love the MVP community. I am engaged with many of them, and it's part of the game. And I am with it. I am with the flow. I mean, we know that exists these two things, and it is valid, and it's a good thing that we have many sources of information, so many points that we can grab information from.
Multiple signals coming in. So with multiple signals, let's open up to the audience signals for any questions.
This is very boring.
There's a question, right? I know you mentioned about the whole idea of work IQ as well, and how you are kind of using that as to a degree personal intelligence itself. How much, what are your benchmarks internally to tell your customers that you can trust whatever is coming out of it? It's not missing information, because I could have an inbox which has 900 emails that come a day versus someone else who has 5, right? So the context window, kind of the entire information that you have a hand on is quite significant, right? We always go out and say, don't trust but verify. AI generated something, go verify. How do you see that in the context of tools like this, which by definition tell you, just trust me, I'm telling you the right thing?
I think I can perhaps redesign the question a little bit in the perspective that when you work with AI, you are working under a context window capacity, right? Even if you have like M365 having a capacity of, if we're talking about GPT 5.2, reasoning is the largest context window, so you can ask a lot of input prompt and get a lot of the result of it, right? But it's a limited context window, so depending on what you're trying to pull, it's going to have that limitation, and no matter with what model, it's always going to have that, right? So just understanding from the technical perspective that there is a context window that is going to limit the amount of data that you may pull. If you just work with the AI chat as an example, then that's part of the features, and that context window continues to grow every day with the new models, right? The second part of it is actually the design of the agent to ground data in a specific set of data, right? So you also have to keep in mind to contextualize it, to focus that grounding of these agents in specifics, and then it's going to reason over all of that because it's part of the API, Graph API, to pull the data from 365 to reason over it. It's based on the context window of that interaction. Now, in regards of internal metrics of how accurate is being pulled, normally you have feedback signals from end users where it's a bad prompt, a bad output of a prompt, right? It's not giving me the result that I was looking for. But every time you see a bad feedback related to how, let's say, Copilot is not giving you what you're looking for or a complete view of it, we need to think first, okay, what was that prompt like design, right? We want to make sure that it has the right context, the right preferences, the right expectations, right? And the goal in that prompt, so that way that output is more valuable versus having to iterate with it and then just give you piece by piece meal, right? But whenever there is very large data sets of files that you need to reason over, we have some guidance into either breaking it apart as an example to try to reason over particular parts, right? But the agentic approach is again, it all has a frame and a limit. It's just knowing that it is what it is and then working with that to obtain what you're looking for.
And there's certain ways to ground it and add more context to the models. Chris had mentioned in the refactoring project, there's certain files that you can create that then create additional context or even boundaries or guidelines on how.
Well, I also want to take one step back on what he said. I think that it's amazing that the Graph API at the end of the day is now a source of information that you can use to explore. Maybe it's not going to be complete, there are going to be some defects, but in the past, this is a lot of information that we are missing and we are not having a good story. So I love the fact that we have something and we can exploit, and I think that there is an opportunity there to be
I mean,
wiser with that.
I agree with you. It's just that how do you essentially sensitize your business users as well as to what do you use it for, right? We work in insurance. We have an issue. You can create an E&O exposure just because you assume that hey, this is what the customer told me based upon an email interaction. Because I mean, if you're a technical user, you understand that, right? But when you're a business user who does
part
not,
of the training.
part of
we-
training and education.
LLMs are not deterministic by definition, so
Yeah.
that's part of the training that we have to do, and part of the ROI question that I said before, right? We have to start dealing with this, like, effect that we are having in our tooling nowadays. That some things are not 100% deterministic. Of course, you can change one parameter and be more deterministic, but LLMs, in the nature of LLMs, is that thing. And dealing with that is and knowing what level of granularity and how to integrate or use better than your normal flow of every day is a thing. Even in Microsoft, we are using a lot. Microsoft, I would say, we mature a lot in the last 18 months or so in terms of using AI internally for our own stuff. A lot. It's a day and night type of thing. And we are still dealing with, what is the right level of granularity to ask something, right? What is the right level of granularity? I mean, at the very beginning, our, normal review process that, every Microsoft employee can take like twice a year. It was very like, people were using AI undercover, right? There were some of them, the Martha one, they were using even maybe not even Microsoft one, and they were trying to slip into the tooling, right? Now they are best guidelines on how you gotta ask the prompting, so they can prepare better your conversation with your manager in order to get from the graph all the interaction that you have and all the congratulations that you have received in the last period. So we get to that, and I think that everything is a progress. It's not like we are gonna get there in the best. We're not gonna go from 0 to 100 with no pain. I don't think that doesn't exist anywhere.
I would like to offer the term adoption change management.
Yeah, adoption change.
Yeah, because again, it's a fast evolving technology. Every day is a new feature. We need to sustain our business users knowing how to leverage these features, right, for the business. So it's not just about giving them the tools, it's about giving them the knowledge how to use the tools for the business. So that way they can take advantage of it, right? So very important topic as well, just to make sure that you upkeep your workforce, your users, your business, yourself, right? With whatever is happening, whatever is available out of the box, or if you're building, whatever improvements you're doing to your custom agents or custom solutions.
So we are just about at time. I want to ask kind of the last question, because this is a recurring theme from 15 years ago, 10 years ago, last week. Clients we work with, whether they earn $1 million a year, 10 million, 100 million, or $1 billion a year, they say, we try to interact with Microsoft, but no one talks to us.
Mm-hmm.
So from your 24 years experience and your 4, just maybe a minute on each, and like, what's the best way for a company utilizing Microsoft licenses and resources? How do they have those conversations?
I know that it's hard to work with Microsoft. I wouldn't sweeten that thing, because I know that it's based on our segmentation things, and there are many rules that are interpreted, right? But some individuals, like Bruno today, I had the conversation with Bruno. I think I was saying to you that I reached out to him for other reason, and immediately we start talking, right? There are certain people that they really enjoy talking. I am among those. I consider myself at least. So if you look for me in LinkedIn, or I'm working with Manatech, I'm gonna go in Emerge to deliver a presentation. I was in Tech Basel delivering a presentation about what you can build Copilot. So I love to have a conversation with customers, so I encourage everybody that want to have more conversation, look for me in LinkedIn or and you're gonna find write me. I think as a matter of fact, that's the way I'm here, right? You reach me through LinkedIn and we start talking about that. So and I love that conversation. There are certain people that are more they like more than others. The segmentation rules are too complex to explain in a 5-minute conversation, so I don't want to get there.
Yeah, and I would say, at least from the perspective of having customers like yourself working with Microsoft, right? Yes, the segmentation is clear, small business, enterprise, very large enterprise, and so on, right? And every single level, depending on your subscriptions, your licensing, your contracts with services and so on, you get some support from those. Just knowing that what are the right people that work with your account team for your business is important because they are kind of your front door, right? So whenever you want to address anything, usually get your account team and the people that have arranged, right, for the services for your business are the right person. But also, if you are using Microsoft services, you have support, right? So there is always an option to open support cases, get answers, get solutions through that avenue too. And the MVP community, people that like us that we like to, or why it's really just to make sure that you understand the value, you understand the patterns that are happening today, so you can, take advantage of those, right? Not just with AI or Microsoft, with AI in general. And yeah, just looking for opportunities. Today, for example, we have a lot of open resources from Microsoft that doesn't cost anything to upskill end users, to upskill AI administrators, to upskill leaders into understanding, the value of AI or understanding enablement, understanding adoption, and the users of upskilling them to know how to use it. So taking advantage of all of those opportunities, you can go to Microsoft events. You can go to the Customer Hub. You can search Microsoft Customer Hub. You're going to find a plethora of opportunities there. And again, depending on your contracts or services with Microsoft, even additional tools and resources that can help your business grow in AI, right? The AI race. But yeah, just MVP community and through conversations like today,
And good partner companies is a way.
Part of the course,
partners is
partner for us is key. I work for partners for many years, so definitely it's one of the key areas. And also we are open Discord channels as well. I mean, Discord sounds like more modern thing, but we have many. Azure Foundry, I would strongly recommend the Discord channel that we have for AI Foundry, or the Power BI one that I use a lot because I understand the Power BI. And definitely I recommend that, and that's another way. Of course, partners is a very good way to work with Microsoft partners, so we have another levels of integration with us.
Any partner in particular?
Yeah, do you have any favorite partners?
One or us can be.
All right, thank you, Lalo and Juan. That was great.